What is good, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Gray, your one and only corrupted angel, and it's time to talk about the Umbra in the room, if you will. It is one of the most, I want to say, contentious Warframes in the Techrat update. If you guys are unaware, Techrat update has brought quite a large number of changes, one of which being to exalted weapons, and of course the king of exalted weapons himself, Mr. Umbra, or rather Excalibur, is one of the ones that is very, very much so talked about as being potentially cracked and potentially way too good. And I wanted to talk a little bit about it and discuss why I think it's perfectly fine that he's this way. I know a lot of people have had some thoughts behind it, but I think that this is a pretty reasonable thing to think about. So let's get straight into exactly what he does and what the build is, and we'll go from there. Starting off with abilities, we have passives. Umbra exhibits sentience in combat without transference control, attacks 10% faster, and deals 100% more damage while wielding swords. This is a pretty cool ability, but also requires some explaining. Basically, when you go into your operator form, your Excalibur Umbra plays autopilot. The only problem with this autopilot is you basically lose all buffs that you have on your Excalibur. And that is kind of a problem when you're trying to keep buffs up and then energize yourself or whatever it is that you want to do. It just really impacts that in a negative way. Moving on, we have slash dash through enemies alongside a radial spectre. The powerful exalted blade slashes inflict slash status. This is a really fun little ability. Basically allows you to press your 1, go invulnerable if you're taking a bit too much damage, and hopefully kill a couple of things in the process. Problem is, with our build, we're not really going to be using it. But you can build slash dash builds perfectly fine, and it is perfectly serviceable to do so, and I highly recommend trying out slash dash builds, because with a pretty convincingly good slash dash build, while you may not be using your exalted blade really at all, you will be essentially immortal while just pressing the 1 key like you're playing some form of like button masher. But I kind of love it, so definitely give that a go. Next up, Radial Howl. Radial Howl is basically just a massive stun, big radius, long duration, blinds everyone. There is a different name, but it's the same ability for all of the non-umbral Excaliburs, whether it be prime or non-prime. Overall, it is still really, really solid. It's definitely something that if you're in a pinch, you can use to get out of the pinch. It does come with the problem of, again, big drain on your energy, and energy efficiency is going to be an issue with this Warframe without any shards, and we'll get into that in a second. Next up is Radial Javelin. Radial Javelin is a really, really fun ability. Long range, big energy cost, but pretty okay damage, with the added benefit of 24.8 seconds of melee damage increase per enemy hit. So this is done via the Furious Javelin Augment mod, which we have on this weapon. It is really, really good because what it does is it gives you 15 extra melee damage, but it is increased by strength for 16 seconds, which is increased by duration, and it allows you to hit maybe anywhere between 10 to 20 enemies with this Radial Javelin, rocking anywhere up to 800 potential melee damage increase depending on how dense the enemies are in the location that you're actually doing it. This can be fantastic in infested missions or any potentially high density missions like a survival run or anything like that. It can be really, really good. Obviously, the less density, the worse this is going to be, so keep that in mind and understand that while this is a fantastic ability, it's also not really necessary at all. So if you ever do have a situation where your duration runs out, don't feel as though you need to spam this ability to keep it up to do enough damage to survive, essentially via killing enemies faster than they can kill you. The Exalted Blade build that we've got will deal enough damage to kill everyone without this buff, and this buff is particularly only used, again, if you have some shards, probably for the most part, to actually get your energy back, which is another thing to keep in mind. Moving on is Exalted Blade. Of course, the sword itself, Excalibur's sword, it does a crap load of damage. It also has the fun aspect of being able to blind people, and you gain, with Chromatic Blade Augment, the ability to change its typing when it comes to damage to a very specific damage type of your choice. The two options that I always go with is Toxic and Electric, and I will explain why, but basically this thing is ridiculous. It also gains bonus status chance, which again, paired with any strength abilities, will make that status chance plus 800, as you can see here, and we'll talk about that in a second. Moving over to the actual Umbra Excalibur build, we have a pretty simple one. Now, there are a couple of things that I want to note here. First of all, we do have those two lovely augment mods, but we have a third one. And the third one is Warrior's Rest. It basically shuts off Umbra's essentially independent operator nonsense, which means that you actually get to keep all of your buffs while you perhaps use Zeneric to gain some more energy, and it increases your strength by just a tad, which is always nice. Last but not least, though, we have the silliness of the Umbral mods. These are not necessary, but when you're playing an Umbral Excalibur, you probably don't want to be running less in these slots. You're probably wanting to just run the Umbral mods to make things easier, and Umbral Intensify and Umbral Vitality are the way to go. Steel Fiber is not really that necessary for obvious reasons, so I like Intensify for that massive hit and ability strength. Pairing it up with Vitality is fantastic, and Vitality obviously still giving you a reasonable amount of health is always nice for survivability, which is a major problem with this Warframe. Then we have Ability Stretch to help us hit more people with the Radial Howl, as well as the Javelins, so that way we can get more damage. And the benefit as well of Stretch is that we can dash further, and also I believe it affects the actual beams that come off of your blade as well. But either way, it is really important in this build, because the more people you hit with that Radial Howl and Furious Javelin, the more you're going to A, stay alive, and do more damage. Next up, we have for survivability, Adaptation. Adaptation just makes sense here. This is just another problem that this guy has, and that is survivability. Major issue, and Adaptation somewhat helps with that. I've paired it with Arcane Grace to help really make yourself like super hard to kill. You can instead take Arcane Aegis here and go for a shield gating build with your companion. I personally run a Panzervolpifiler instead, so I don't have that luxury, but Arcane Grace is a pretty decent way of staying alive for the most part. Then we have Blind Rage, which does take away from our efficiency, and to counteract that we have Arcane Energize. Again, really important to have Arcane Energize here, because energy is such a massive problem with this Warframe. You do have a crapload of ability strength from this, though, which brings us up to 267 with all of our benefits, and that is fantastic. It means that we're doing absolutely ridiculous status chance, ridiculous damage, and just overall don't have to worry about any form of lacking of damage. It is just all damage all day. We have Primed Continuity in here as well. Primed Continuity is actually really important because it stops our drain on our Exalted Blade from being as bad as it could be. It also allows us to have more Javelin and more Radial Howl, which is always nice because, again, energy efficiency is just such a big deal. You know, you want to be able to have, for all intensive purposes, the most bang for your buck you can, and that is the best way to do it. Arcane Grace, if you want to go the shield gating way as well, can be swapped out, not just for Aegis, but also for any bonus melee damage options from Arcane Fury to Arcane Reaper. Just consider what you prefer and add it on. This is very much so a flex spot. I don't have the shield gate build on, so I'm going with adaptation grace, but it's up to you. You can always go rolling guard, shield gate, and do that instead. Onto the Exalted Blade. We have this. This is a pretty fun build, and yes, before you say anything, the boogeyman is on this build, but hear me out. It isn't necessary. It's just there for the sake of being there. So we'll talk about that in a second. But we'll start off with, of course, Sacrificial Steel and Sacrificial Pressure. These actually benefit each other. I don't have this build maxed, so that's something to consider here too. You don't need them maxed, in all honesty. This still hits for like millions of damage with just these two being at this rank. It also saves you a bunch of endos, so consider that a massive plus. Primed Reach, also not necessary. You can always just use regular Reach, but I think Primed Reach is just a must-have in all melee builds. So Primed Reach is definitely one to go for, no matter what. Always put it on your weapons. Grab it from Barricadier. It's worth every bit of investment. So get yourself one and do it. All of it will help with getting bigger hits, killing more people at once, and that is all you really need. We've got Condition Overload, because we have so many status effects going on. We've got the Panzervolper Filer, being able to help us out as well with applying status in the form of viral, so that way we can have blast and electricity going at all times. That gives us an extra 160 melee damage, which is really, really fun. And then that's on top of the viral, which then becomes even more. So you're looking at 240% damage on those targets from Condition Overload, meaning we're just hitting really ridiculously big numbers. To pair that up though, we have Berserker Fury for on melee kill, more attack speed, stacking twice, meaning we get 75% attack speed every single time we kill two guys. And then every single hit multiplier, increasing our critical chance with Blood Rush by 40%, meaning that we're going to hit massive, massive crits that are absolutely ridiculous if we get to 12 hit multiplier or anything like that. Sustaining that multiplier is harder than you would think, thanks to, again, energy and enemy density requirements. And then we've got Blast for Vicious, Frost, and Molten Impact. This gives us quite a decent amount of damage. If you wanted to, you could probably form in the Molten Impact and make Vicious Frost into a primed mod. For example, you could easily have like 2 more former on here for the primed wind, you know, like, or whatever you want, right? It's just up to you. You can also just go double 90 mods here instead. You already have a ridiculous amount of status, and that's not even including your chromatic blade bonus. So there is that to keep in mind too. You are going to apply multiple status effects consistently with this weapon. And then of course we have melee influence, because we decided to color our blade blue, giving us the electric status chance as our main damage type. This is really nice because, again, we've already got so much status chance that we're applying all the status in the world, so we can put melee influence on. It spreads those statuses even more, meaning we're just doing insane damage to everyone. It's great. We love it. We'll go straight into a MOT run to show you exactly what this build can do. We don't have any other weapons on here either that is going to benefit our melee damage or anything like that, which is something that you should always consider. So let's quickly go do that. We'll show you what it can do. Again, survivability is a problem, and the reason why I say this Warframe is perfectly viable and perfectly fine being the way it is and doesn't really need touching up, in my opinion, is that it was always a fairly mediocre frame prior, with the only real niche build being a slash dash build, and I find those to be somewhat mediocre even then. The thing that I like about this frame is that if you want the full potential of it, you really do have to invest a crap load into it. The investment that I've put into this Umbral Excalibur is still probably significantly higher than most starter players that have Umbral Excalibur can even do, and that's something to keep in mind when you're doing it. The other issue that you have to consider as well is that, honestly, even with the build as I am now, I'm probably going to end up having to put at least a single purple shard, if not 2 purple shards, or maybe a purple shard and 2 blues, for more energy slash energy efficiency on the build, because again, if you really don't have a good amount of enemy density and you're not getting regular amounts of energy coming your way, you can just be in a scenario where you don't have the damage to kill enough guys and get enough energy to keep going, right? As you can see though, it does not struggle. It does not struggle. We are draining energy faster than we're getting it though. And that is kind of my problem with this build, is that energy-wise, even with Xeneric, even with Arcane Energize on here, we're still struggling. We are blowing up the world, as you can see. And we have enough energy density, enemy density, sorry, to support our energy costs to a degree. But there we go, we just ran out. Basically, there's no hope in us getting more. And this is where those purple shards come in. You just have to hope for energy drops, and it's so hard to do that. And it's one of my least favorite parts about this frame, is you can just genuinely hit an unfortunate circumstance where I think adding something like a purple shard here would go great. Survivability, as you can see, not doing great, just bare minimum. And that's where my problem lies. My problem lies in the fact that you still need to put so much effort, even with a subpar companion like I have. I am, while able to do lots of damage, just not able to support the damage with health. I struggle. You are looking at quite a detriment in that regard. Rolling guard would do perfectly fine here. Again, energy, like gating with a Nautilus would be pretty good, I think. You know, a Nautilus combo, I like that idea. Definitely something that I would consider. If I ever get a Nautilus, I'll probably end up building a Nautilus up and doing a Nautilus just for the sake of this. Because I would love to see shield gating Excalibur Umbra with a Nautilus and pulling in all the enemies, regenerating my shields every couple of seconds. Put rolling guard instead of adaptation on. There we go. We finally ran out of energy. We can always stun if we need to. We got the harmony on. The other benefit though of Excalibur, in my opinion, is Excalibur has a really fun aspect that you got to remember as well. His javelins don't just apply to his exalted weapon. You can very well use, for example, a Dokram Zor, apply it with the same melee influence build that you see on the blade, and because it's counted as a heavy sword, it still gets all the passive benefits of being a sword. It gets the javelin ability, so you're not draining energy while you're doing it. So you can still be an absolute beast when it comes to a melee build. If you so desire, you can make this guy into a mini Calavo. You could even subsume Calavo's ability onto him in combination with your javelins, and then give yourself some more like survivability in the form of like equilibrium or something like that as well, instead of the other augment. I'm going down like no tomorrow in this, because unfortunately the survivability just isn't quite there with a Panther Profiler. But you can see the damage potential, and that is kind of the reason why I wanted to make this video. He does have the damage, but he does require a lot of effort, and I see way too many people thinking that he's OP, that he's too good, and in reality a lot of those people are just talking about insane levels of investment that are not really viable. You could easily put Streamline or something on here as well for more energy efficiency if you went down the route of shield gating too. So definitely consider that. And if you get a chance, I would recommend grabbing yourself a potential. Well, can we see if we can get that? Get this guy real quick. Because, yeah, see if you can potentially grab yourself a Nautilus and then do it that way, because I think Nautilus is probably the best way to do it. I know a lot of people just look at the damage, and yeah, the damage is ridiculous. I mean, look at this. But you got to think about it from a entirely, like, mission standpoint as you're going to take damage. Even if you do 6 trillion damage, you're going to take damage. And that's something that a lot of people don't realize. Oh my god. Thank you. In saying that, though, he does still destroy people like no tomorrow, and I absolutely love that. But there you have it. It is done, and like I said, this is kind of where I'm at with Excalibur at the moment. I think that Excalibur has the potential to be really, really good, but he's balanced entirely by the fact that he just can't take damage. Even now, I'm kind of dying. And if I didn't have my secondary, and even with my secondary, there you go, I still died. But I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. I know that it's not exactly the best when I show off a Warframe and he dies a whole bunch, but the reason why I wanted to show off that he dies a whole bunch is also because, again, a lot of YouTubers that I've seen that have been reviewing Excalibur are showing him in the simulacrum doing 6 trillion damage per hit and not talking about the fact that he can't take one. This is something that has been a massive issue in my eyes, and something that is relatively consistent throughout all of the YouTuber space right now. I don't know why people are doing this and why they're ignoring a blatant flaw in the character itself. I think if you build the correct companion and you highly invest in a companion to Shieldgate like Nautilus, and you have that already there, he might be fantastic in terms of survivability, but even then, he's nothing so outstanding where I think that he's going to take over the meta to the point where he's the most broken character in the game or anything like that, which is what a lot of people have been essentially going on and on about, and I just think it's ridiculous. So, hope that you understand. Enjoy the video, like, comment, subscribe, all that sort of jazz. Give some love, give some support. I stream over on Twitch absolutely every single day. This is one of the first Warframe videos that I wanted to talk about the new update properly with. I know that I've been sort of dead on the Warframe content, but that's just because I have been so busy getting stuff done, and also I am, well, kind of dead on plat right now. And that has made me run out of a large amount of my former. If you want to support me in any way, shape, or form, please do add me over on Warframe. Give some love. If you have any spare platinum or former that you'd love to give me to help me out, by all means, I appreciate the love. I appreciate the support. I'm doing the Warframe content purely out of my own heart and soul and love for the game and for the community. I haven't had this much support anywhere else on the planet, and it's all thanks to you guys watching. So thank you again. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.